As the final, lingering breath of the day exhaled, not with a sudden rush or a dramatic flourish, but with an almost imperceptible, gradual ebb, Elias began his preparations for the evening. It was his nightly ritual, a quiet, unchanging choreography performed within the ancient walls of the city library. He was a librarian, an old librarian, whose eyes had witnessed countless sunsets surrender to countless evenings, their dying light painting the tall, arched windows of this venerable institution. The library itself was a monument to time, very old, and imbued with a profound, almost sacred quietude. This quiet, even amidst the gentle hum of midday activity, deepened considerably once the last patron had shuffled out, and the heavy oak doors, with a soft, resonant sigh, had sealed themselves for the night. It transformed then into a different kind of quiet, a living, breathing quiet, woven from the faint, almost imperceptible settlement of the building, the gentle, rhythmic creak of ancient timbers adjusting to the cooler night air, and the nearly inaudible whisper of dust motes caught in their slow, silent dance within the last fading beams of light that managed to pierce the high, grimy panes. Elias always commenced his rounds without fail in the reference section. This beginning was a predictable anchor, a comforting certainty in the vast expanse of the library. It was the section closest to his small, meticulously tidy office, a space where the air perpetually carried the faint, reassuring scent of aged paper and the ghost of lukewarm tea. His movements were not rushed, nor even brisk, but rather slow, deliberate, each step a mere whisper against the worn, polished floorboards. He habitually wore his soft, well-loved felt slippers, which effectively muted any sound he might otherwise make, lending him the almost ethereal quality of a specter gliding silently through the hushed corridors. His hand, gnarled and speckled with the quiet marks of age, extended slowly towards the first book on the first shelf. It was, he remembered distinctly, a large, weighty volume, an encyclopedia, its familiar dark green spine a constant presence for decades, its title embossed in faded, yet still discernible gold leaf, a silent testament to enduring knowledge. From his pocket, he produced a small, exquisitely soft feather duster. It was a tool well acquainted with its purpose, its feathers softened and pliant from innumerable years of gentle, devoted service. He began to dust the top of the book, his motions unhurried, a gentle pendulum swinging back and forth, back and forth. The dust was infinitesimally fine, almost imperceptible to the naked eye, yet it was an ever-present, tireless film that settled silently, relentlessly, over every surface. Elias held no aversion to this dust. In a peculiar way, it was a companion, a silent, humble witness to the ceaseless passage of time within these quiet, hallowed walls. As his hand moved in that slow, steady rhythm, his eyes, a soft, watery blue peering through the familiar frames of his spectacles, traced the myriad spines of the books. Each one was a familiar face, a quiet acquaintance, a silent friend in this vast textual landscape. He did not, during these nightly peregrinations, engage in reading. His sole purpose was to acknowledge their quiet presence, to ensure they remained settled, undisturbed, and in their proper, precise order. He moved along the shelf with unvarying consistency, addressing each book individually, dusting each with the same unhurried, contemplative pace. The rhythm he knew was paramount, the unwavering consistency of his movements. It transcended mere task. It was a form of meditation, a quiet, unspoken conversation with the silent reservoir of knowledge contained within these myriad pages. His journey continued, a seamless transition from the weighty encyclopedias to the diverse collection of dictionaries, and then onward to the various comprehensive atlases. Each book presented its own distinct tactile experience, its own specific weight, its own subtle texture. Some offered a cool, smooth resistance beneath his fingertips, while others felt rougher, slightly yielding to his gentle touch. He became aware of the nuanced variations in the paper, the distinct, subtle fragrances that emanated from their closed pages. Some possessed a faint, comforting mustiness, others a delicate hint of dried ink, a ghostly echo of their creation. His mind at this moment was not engaged with the content, with the words themselves. His focus remained entirely on the external, on the tangible, physical presence of the books, on the slow, methodical, almost reverential act of their tender care. The air within the library in these hushed evening hours was always remarkably still. It rarely stirred, even when a faint, exploratory breeze might somehow find its way through a barely ajar window during the warmer, gentler months. Tonight, however, it was an unparalleled stillness, a deep, pervasive quietude, like a soft, hushed embrace that seemed to cradle the very silence itself. There were no discernible sounds from the world beyond the library's stout walls, no distant, mournful sirens, no low murmur of late-night traffic. The city outside, typically a bustling, noisy, restless entity, seemed to hold its collective breath, in silent deference to the library's deep, peaceful slumber. He continued his unhurried progression, shelf by shelf, aisle by quiet aisle. The biography section awaited him next, a veritable tapestry of human lives. Here, the books often presented a more varied visual spectacle, thinner in their girth, their spines displaying a wider spectrum of colors and designs. He vaguely recalled, from distant memories, some of the extraordinary and ordinary lives encapsulated within these pages. Great explorers charting unknown territories, forgotten poets weaving delicate verses, quiet scientists painstakingly uncovering the secrets of the universe. Their stories, their triumphs, and their struggles were all nestled together, side by side, reduced now to a silent, dignified, and faintly dusty presence. He allowed his fingers to trail gently along the spines, feeling the slight, comforting indentations of the embossed lettering, the smooth, aged resistance of the well-worn cloth bindings. Occasionally, a book would be subtly out of alignment, perhaps pushed in a fraction too deeply, or protruding a fraction of an inch more than its immediate neighbors. He would, with the utmost gentleness, correct its position, sliding it back into perfect, harmonious alignment with the others. It was an infinitesimal adjustment, almost imperceptible to an casual observer, yet it consistently brought him a quiet, deep satisfaction. Order, he mused, in the profound quiet of the night was an inherently soothing concept, particularly in a world that often felt so relentlessly chaotic. The library, in its meticulous, unwavering arrangement, offered a profound and comforting counterpoint to that very chaos. It was a bastion of structured peace. From the grand hall, the ornate, formidable clock, with its heavy, deliberate pendulum, chimed the hour. Dong, dong, dong. Each note resonated, deep and resonant, through the vast, echoing space, slowly, gracefully fading into the encompassing quiet. It was a gentle sound, not jarring or intrusive, but rather a soft, reaffirming confirmation of the relentless, unyielding march of time. Yet, time itself felt different within the library's ancient walls, slower, more deliberate, almost suspended. Elias felt no compulsion to rush. He never rushed. There was simply no need. The books, he knew with absolute certainty, would remain steadfastly here tomorrow, and the day after that, patiently awaiting his quiet, unassuming ministrations. His journey led him into the vast expanse of the history section, a realm of towering shelves laden with weighty, formidable tomes. Here, the book spines often presented a darker, more somber palette, a rich array of deep greens, profound browns, and muted, dignified reds. He conjured images of the untold centuries of human experience contained within their pages, the majestic rise and sorrowful fall of empires, the whispered echoes of civilizations long since faded into dust. He dusted each volume with the same unwavering attention, his movements maintaining their steady, almost hypnotic rhythm. The soft, rhythmic swish of the duster against the book spines was the sole audible sound, a gentle, comforting accompaniment to the profound and enveloping silence. He noted, with a quiet internal observation, the subtle texture of the air in this particular section. It felt different, somehow, perhaps a little heavier, as if imbued with the immense weight of so much accumulated past. Or perhaps, he mused, that was merely a quiet fancy of his imagination, a silent whisper in the deep, contemplative hours of the night. He continued his movement, one slow, deliberate step, then another, his felt slippers rendering him utterly silent. He wasn't consciously thinking about anything in particular, simply observing, feeling, sensing the quiet, immense presence of the books, their silent stories emanating a subtle, unseen energy. Sometimes he would momentarily pause, his hand extending to gently run his finger along the top edge of a shelf, feeling the impossibly fine layer of dust that had without fail accumulated there. It was a constant presence, an unyielding, ethereal film. He would then, with painstaking care, wipe it away with a small, slightly damp cloth he habitually carried in his other pocket, leaving the surface momentarily smooth and clean, before the invisible particles would inevitably begin their slow, graceful, and unceasing descent once more. It was a small act, a fleeting, transient victory against the relentless, quiet march of dust. But it was, for Elias, a necessary one, a silent declaration of his quiet stewardship. The fiction section was invariably the largest, a sprawling, intricate labyrinth of countless narratives and boundless imaginations. Here, the colors of the spines burst forth in a more varied, almost exuberant array, a vibrant kaleidoscope of bright yellows, tranquil pale blues, and vivid, energetic reds. He imagined the untold numbers of characters that resided, suspended in time, within these countless pages, their whispered conversations, their silent internal journeys, their grand adventures and quiet epiphanies. He dusted each and every one from the venerable classic novels, their pages imbued with the wisdom of generations, to the more contemporary tales, still fresh with the ink of recent print, each receiving the same gentle, unwavering care. He observed with his quiet, focused attention the distinct types of paper, the subtle, nuanced variations in the bindings. Some books felt extraordinarily smooth and cool to the touch, almost like polished stone, while others were noticeably rougher, more fibrous, offering a gentle, textured resistance. He did not, during these moments, delve into the intricacies of the stories contained within them. He simply acknowledged their physical existence, their silent, waiting presence on the shelf. The very act of dusting, the profound simplicity of the repetitive motion, the quiet, unwavering focus, was in itself enough. It was the purpose. The soft, diffused light from the streetlights outside, filtered and softened by the high, arched windows, cast long, languid shadows across the polished floorboards. These shadows moved in quiet synchronicity with him, stretching and contracting, elongating and shortening as he made his slow, steady progress through the quiet aisles. They were gentle shadows, devoid of any menace, simply there, a quiet, visual testament to the world beyond the library's glass, a world that was now, for the most part, deeply asleep, much like the countless stories slumbering within the books themselves. He paused for a fleeting moment, his hand coming to rest gently on a shelf dedicated to poetry. The books here were often smaller, more delicate, their presence almost ephemeral. He imagined the quiet cadences of the verses contained within them, the gentle, almost imperceptible rhythm of words carefully strung together to evoke a profound feeling. to capture a fleeting moment, to distill an emotion. He closed his eyes for a brief, almost imperceptible moment, just a moment, and allowed the profound, quiet stillness of the library to envelop him completely, like a soft, warm, all-encompassing blanket of silence. He felt utterly at peace. His unhurried journey resumed, leading him through the meticulous rows of the science section, where the books often presented stark, functional covers, their pages densely packed with intricate diagrams, complex equations, and precise scientific formulations. He did not profess to comprehend the complex theories or the profound scientific breakthroughs contained within them, but he held a deep, unspoken respect for their silent, immense contribution to the vast tapestry of human knowledge. He dusted them with the same gentle, unwavering care, ensuring their quiet, precise order remained utterly undisturbed. The air in this particular section felt curiously crisp, perhaps a lingering echo of the precise calculations and the logical, ordered structures held within their pages. Or perhaps, again, it was merely the deep, pervasive quiet of the night, playing tricks on his senses. The repetitive, almost hypnotic motion of his hand, back and forth, was a profoundly calming force. He felt his breathing naturally slow, deepening into a steady, rhythmic cadence. The myriad worries of the day, if indeed there had been any of significance, had long since dissolved, drifting away like wisps of smoke, replaced now by the simple, comforting rhythm of his singular task. There was no pressure to accelerate, no anxious anticipation of a finish line. There was simply the quiet, enduring presence of the books, the soft, whispering caress of the duster, and the deep, abiding, all-encompassing silence of the profound night. He then moved into the children's section, a vibrant corner of the library that during the sunlit hours of the day was often filled with the soft, joyful murmurs and the occasional bright giggles of young, curious voices. Now it was utterly, completely silent, the brightly colored spines of the books standing sentinel over miniature tables and small, perfectly proportioned chairs. The books here often bore the visible marks of much love and repeated handling, their corners gently softened, their pages dog-eared from countless eager hands, their stories loved and reloved. He dusted them with an even more pronounced gentleness, his touch perhaps even softer here, a silent, almost tender acknowledgement of the small, curious minds they had once so utterly captivated. He noticed with quiet observation the distinct textures of their covers, some smooth and glossy, inviting a light touch, others rough and delightfully tactile, inviting curious fingers to explore. He did not, in these moments, ponder the fantastical creatures, the brave heroes, or the magical adventures that lived within these inviting pages. He simply cared for their physical forms, ensuring they were impeccably ready for the next day's eager hands, for the next set of bright, curious eyes, for the next journey into imagination. The faint, pervasive scent of old wood polish, a scent that had permeated the very fabric of the library for decades upon decades, seemed particularly strong and comforting in this quiet, intimate section. It was a deeply comforting scent, a profoundly familiar scent, an intrinsic part of the library's very essence, its silent, olfactory signature. He moved with his usual unhurried grace from shelf to shelf, his movements unhurried, each book, regardless of its size or age, receiving its precise, due attention. The moonlight, now a pale, ethereal glow, began to stream more generously through the highest windows, casting a soft, silver light onto the polished floorboards. It illuminated, with a delicate touch, the countless dust motes as they continued their slow, silent dance in the air, tiny, insignificant specks, each one caught in its own slow, graceful, almost meditative ballet. He watched them for a moment, their slow, swirling movements, a silent, mesmerizing reflection of the quiet, unhurried pace of his own evening, his own existence within these quiet walls. He steadfastly continued his deliberate journey, moving through the expansive art section, where the books were often large, beautifully proportioned, and often laid flat, filled with vibrant, exquisite reproductions of paintings and sculptures from every era. He dusted their smooth, often glossy covers, feeling the subtle, sophisticated variations in the paper, the gentle, satisfying give of the binding. His mind did not wander to the colors, the intricate brushstrokes, or the profound artistic intentions behind the works depicted. His unwavering focus remained entirely on the simple, restorative act of cleaning, the methodical, repetitive process of ensuring order, of maintaining a quiet visual harmony. The silence of the library was not an empty, vacant silence. It was rather a full, resonant silence, a silence imbued with meaning, filled with the quiet, potent presence of countless stories, countless facts, countless ideas, countless discoveries, all waiting patiently, serenely, to be rediscovered. It was a profoundly calming silence, a silence that gently invited introspection, a silence that cradled the weary mind in its soft, unwavering embrace. It was a silence that spoke volumes without uttering a single sound. He finally reached the last section on his nightly circuit, the periodicals, where the magazines and journals, more ephemeral than their bound counterparts, were neatly arranged in their various utilitarian holders. These were often less dusty, handled more frequently during the day, yet he still ran his soft duster over them, a final, ritualistic gesture, a silent affirmation of completeness. The paper here was often smoother, glossier, offering a distinctly different tactile experience from the more substantial aged paper of the older, thicker books. He meticulously checked the spines of each periodical, ensuring they were all perfectly aligned, all impeccably in order, forming an unbroken, uniform line. He ran his hand with a familiar, reassuring gesture over the very top of the display racks, feeling for any stray, lingering dust, any minute, almost imperceptible imperfection. His movements remained unfailingly slow, still utterly deliberate, even though he was undeniably nearing the absolute conclusion of his long, quiet rounds. There was no discernible sense of urgency, no compelling desire to rush towards the finish. The journey itself was the fundamental purpose, the quiet, repetitive, enduring act of care, of stewardship, of quiet devotion. And then, finally, he arrived back at his starting point, the reference section once more, completing his silent, circular pilgrimage. He looked back down the long, quiet, beautifully illuminated aisles, a silent, enduring testament to his meticulous, unhurried journey. The books stood silently, bathed in the soft, ambient glow of the remaining dim lights, their myriad spines a silent, powerful testament to the vast, boundless knowledge they held, waiting patiently for the dawn. He gently returned the soft, pliable duster to its rightful place in his pocket, its feathers yielding softly against his aged fingers. He felt a quiet, profound sense of completion settle over him, a deep, peaceful satisfaction. The library, in its entirety, was settled now for the night, its precious, invaluable contents carefully cared for, its profound silence utterly undisturbed. He stood for a long moment, simply standing, simply breathing, inhaling deeply the familiar, comforting scent of old paper, of quiet dust, of polished wood, letting the deep, pervasive stillness of the library wash over him, encompassing him completely. His steps on the return journey to his small office were as soft and as slow as they had been on his outward path, a gentle mirror image of his meticulous outward progression. The floorboards, ancient and wise, creaked faintly in response to his gentle weight, a familiar, comforting, almost companionable sound. He reached his office, a small enclosed space that always felt like a quiet, private haven within the larger, echoing quiet of the library itself. He carefully placed his spectacles on the small, unassuming wooden desk, next to a half-empty mug of cold, forgotten tea. The air in the office was noticeably warmer, a little warmer than the rest of the vast library, and carried the persistent, comforting scent of ink and aged paper. He sat down in his old, beloved, remarkably worn chair, a chair that had, over countless years of quiet use, perfectly molded itself to the unique contours of his body. He did not reach for any additional lights. The faint, ethereal glow from the high windows was more than sufficient, a gentle, ambient illumination that softened the edges of every object in the room, making them appear softer, more dreamlike. He leaned back, allowing his eyes to slowly, gently close. He wasn't thinking about anything specific, no pressing matters, no future plans, just the quiet, rhythmic breathing, the gentle, almost imperceptible rise and fall of his chest, a testament to his quiet existence. The subtle, living sounds of the library, the elusive creaks and soft groans of the old building settling into its deep, nightly slumber, seemed to deepen and intensify in the absolute, enveloping quiet. He could almost discern the silence itself, a gentle, almost palpable hum that seemed to fill every inch of the vast space. There was no pressure weighing on him, no expectation, no urgent demand, just the simple, profound act of being present in this quiet room, in this quiet old library, in the deep, quiet depths of the unhurried night. His thoughts, if indeed they could be accurately described as thoughts, were like slow, languidly drifting clouds, formless and utterly ephemeral. He was not attempting to solve any problems, nor was he planning for the arrival of tomorrow. He was simply allowing his mind to drift, unmoored from any specific purpose, floating gently on the currents of quietude. He felt a gentle, pervasive weight of sleep begin to settle over him, a soft, comforting blanket that began to envelop his consciousness, drawing him deeper into its embrace. He remained there, in his chair, in the deep, gentle quiet, surrounded by the silent, steadfast guardians of knowledge. The countless dust motes continued their slow, unhurried, silent dance in the faint, silvery light, each a tiny, insignificant speck engaged in its own personal, quiet ballet. The world outside the library's walls was deeply, profoundly asleep, and within the library, an old librarian, having completed his quiet, devoted vigil, was slowly, almost imperceptibly, drifting into the deep, peaceful, restorative slumber of a night well spent, a life well lived. The silence deepened further, becoming absolute, a profound and soothing emptiness that invited nothing, demanded nothing, but perfect, untroubled rest. And in that deep, utterly enveloping silence, Elias finally, gently, peacefully, drifted away into the realm of dreams.